Good evening, and welcome to the Perspecticast, the Panda Perspectives companion podcast. This week I thought interesting that, given the holiday in the US, we still had some news flows coming out of China, and there was a big meeting that Xi Jinping hosted for the leadership of the technology, broadly defined technology space, but technology nevertheless. So that will be the topic of today's show, but I wanted to, as usual, go over some of the things going on the blog and reasons for them, because, as I mentioned in the weekly wrap, we will have an interruption in our publishing schedule, and instead of finalizing the report on automation with the final report on Easton, and then moving on to semiconductors, which was pre-advertised and planned, well, that's being interrupted by a 2-week break for internet large caps, right? Very large subscribers and clients have gotten in touch and said, look, buddy, it's all cute and well, plans, etc., but you have to formulate a view on these things in a bit more detail than just, more buyers than sellers in the Babas and Tencents of the world, which I thought, what, if they're asking for it, it probably means that everybody else is asking a similar question. And of course, Panda Perspectives has never tackled the Babas and the Tencents of the world on the assumption that does the world really need another report on those things? But apparently it does. So here we are. It will be hitting the inbox. The first part is Baba, almost done with that. So tomorrow or after tomorrow, it should hit the inboxes, and then Baidu a couple days later. And then next week, it's going to be Tencent and Meitian. Apologies for the voice and the coughing, but I've been sort of a little bit under the weather, but nevertheless, it hasn't precluded me from doing a fair bit of work on Baba anyway. Now, I mentioned this in the premium product, the Panda portfolio, that I'm working on another big piece, which is sort of spring market expectations and views, which has a lot to do with expectations of the NPC. And right on cue, we're having an update on the standing committee meeting, which is going to be the 24th and the 25th of February. This is the last standing committee just before the NPC, and I would expect some policy updates. I will not be publishing anything before then, because there's an awful lot of material about what we're expecting from the NPC on the blog over the past couple of months, so do seek it out. But I do believe that today's meeting with the tech leadership was actually quite important in that regard. Maybe not in terms of what was actually said, but rather in the spirit of it. We'll dive straight in, right? So the meeting happened. It was great. There's an awful lot of conspiracy or criminology, whatever it is you want to call it, but people trying to study the seating seating charts. I'm going to put one in the description of the show, definitive seating map by Hutong, and you can do with it what you want. Do you want to read a lot into it and rank people according to seniority, or according to their recent achievements, or according to their life achievements? I don't know. But I would note that, to me, the biggest shock was that New Hope Linhue, chairman and CEO is still there somehow. A New Hope, of course, has a big food tech program, so that's why. And they're also a constituent member of the Shinex index in top 5, which is why I always make fun of it, because Shinex, the technological index and the pig farm index for some reason. But of course, it's because New Hope has wasted an awful lot of money on vaccines and things like that, and generally on food tech. It didn't prevent them from messing up during swine flu, but here we are. But again, despite their performance, they still get invited, and they still get fairly sort of senior placement on this placement chart. So again, do with that what you will. I would steer clear from generalizing anything but the fact that some people were and weren't invited. So the biggest omission is, of course, Baidu. Baidu have messed up. Baidu have messed up big time, because they were supposed to be the AI people. This time last year they were, in fact, right? I distinctly remember all the sell-side pitches around Baidu and how they were going to be the Apple partner for Apple Intelligence, the day one partner on Apple Intelligence in China, obviously, you know how that went. And in general, I think the capitulation for the Baidu team is obviously the fact that they're now going to be including DeepSeek on everything. Well, I mean, unless they're able to come up with a better model, which is still not completely off the cards. But for my money, the crucial data point here is the fact that they've not been invited, and and it's precisely a slap on the wrist, right? I don't think that's, anything more than that, but it's a very clear reminder to them that, guys, you've messed up. Your product is not up to stuff. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, you're not joining in the party. And, not joining the party they did, as their stock fell almost 8% at one point. I think it closed down closer to 7. But again, it seems entirely an overreaction, but an overreaction I can understand, right? I mean, in the environment where we're also concerned about what Xi Jinping is going to do, about a particular aspect in the technology space, I think everyone is way too scarred from the 2018 experience and onwards that they're not going to take it easy. Now, understandable. But what about the inclusions? Well, I mean, I'm happy to report that CATL has been well represented, and Nongfu Springs for some reason. Nongfu Springs being the drinking water company number 1 in China. Okay. All right, well, I suppose that's an important thing. Nevertheless, I think the CATL presence is important, given that there was a news release that came out not concurrently with the. Not concurrently with the rest of the report, but at the same time, but roughly at the same time, and that was that battery tech will be the name of the game for the next 2 years. That a lot of engineering challenges within battery space will be encouraged and things like that, and that's obviously CATL was there for that, and obviously BYD was also present, the two big leaders in the battery space. And I said it many times before that I love CATL, and I think that their technological leadership is there to stay for some time. Their industrial leadership is what entrenches their technological leadership, and because those two are intertwined and the management of CATL is so focused on it, I am a big believer that they'll be able to get it done. I will stress that this announcement of the change in treatment of battery technology is following on from an announcement last week when they said they will remove some of the subsidies for the solar and the wind on account of greater penetration of solar and wind in China. The challenge is, of course, the storage. So now the storage has to catch up. It's natural. So not only you cut tariffs for solar and wind, you increase tariffs for storage. Excellent. High fives all around. I think that it's a reasonable decision here. In fact, they're keeping some of the tariffs on solar still, so it's not like they're moving away from that completely. So I think they're doing all the right things. So in general, was there anything said at this meeting that was particularly sort of interesting or music to my ears? No. I mean, the overall message of like this being fundamental policy of development of private economy, this policy exists and will be consistently upheld and implemented. I mean, these are just terms to say that we know what we're doing and we'll continue doing what we think is right, which could mean different things over the years. But right now, it means that we understand the pickle we're in, and we will continue down the path of trying to raise the value of assets. Now, this is the thing that they've been highlighting for some time, and this is something that we will expect to continue. And so this is a great. I think this is a great next step. The fact that we're talking about talents that private enterprises may possess and that it's a great way for the private enterprises to showcase those talents, that already is an excellent change in rhetoric, right? We're not talking about, any harmonious existence of state companies and private companies. Private companies can do and highlight their own skills on their own. All of it good news. But, of course, where it's lacking is concrete policy proposals. And again, the reason why we're not writing previews for this policy action, that policy action, is because we know all the policies that are required. We've established all the policies that needed to have happened or need to be on the agenda for the NPC. And whilst this is clearly very positive, we fully expect full policy proposals to start circulating ahead of the NPC in March, and that will be the time for disappointment or jubilation, would pick one basically. And that's not going to come not for another couple of weeks. Like I said, the interesting aspect of it is the fact that the NPC standing committee will be held next week, so maybe something interesting will come out of it. Otherwise, to me, it seems like we are in a very interesting place with the market, right? Short in FXI is at an all-time or very recent high, right? It's another chat that I will post in the description of the post. The fact that concurrent with this massive run-up in BABA, UID, you name it. For those of you who subscribe to the full version of the blog, you're going to get the portfolio. You've seen the moves, right? Lots of things are up 50%, right? I mean, of which, we were happy to be exposed to some. some things are moving now, right? You're looking at the moves in automation space this morning, right? I mean, all of it is. Well, very exciting and interesting, but also quite clearly is being met with a degree of skepticism from around the investor world. Now, can we do something about that skepticism? I don't know, but I think the most natural response to it is doing it through better performance over time. As we continue delivering on good performance, these shorts will tend to get squeezed eventually, right? But for now, I think there is a degree of fighting the last war, or whatever it is you want to call it, but this commitment to the idea that China is going to underperform in this environment. Again, we've gone into a lot of detail as to why we don't believe that is actually the case, even right now, even before the NPC policy announcements, right? That mindset has already changed, that the switch has already been flipped, right? It's just, given the size of the machine that we're dealing with, it takes some time for it to get through. Although the most recent date is actually turned up. Again, this is reflected in the weekly wrap, right? So, well, I guess where I'm going with all of this is the path is clearing up in my mind, and I'm very excited for the proposals that we're going to see out of the standing committee meeting. Let's see what they actually come up with, and I will hope to write a full NPC preview after the standing committee meeting, but before the two sessions formally begin. So look forward to that piece in the next sort of couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, have a lovely week ahead. Check out the blog, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to the full version behind the paywall if any of the premium features interest you. Oh, by the way, on the Baba, Baidu, Tencent, and Meitian, one of them is probably going to be mostly free. The rest are going to be behind the paywall. I'm not sure which. I mean, the obvious move here is to make the Baba freely accessible. It's a good marketing tool and whatever. But quite frankly, I think understanding Baba correctly in this environment is important. So I'm not so sure. So I'll think about it, and I'll talk to some people, see if how offended they'll be if I make Baba freely available. If not, probably going to be Baidu. If they're okay with it, then Baba it will be. But 3 out of the 4 will be behind the paywall. Yeah, like I was saying, look forward to writing those. Hope you will be looking forward to reading those. And speak to you over the course of the week. And have a lovely week ahead.